Okay, guys, before you invest even a single dollar into Chia, whether it's like plotting, buying it, or anything, you have to watch this video first. It's super, super critical, okay? So a few days ago, I made a video about basically figuring out an optimal PC configuration, looking at the ratios, identifying like what parts are gonna be bottlenecks in your system so that you can figure out how to maximize your plotting efficiency. One thing that I didn't cover, and this is actually a question from a viewer on the video, is he wanted to make an investment and set up a plotting rig, and he had a finite amount of money to make that investment in. And one thing that's really important that I don't think I really talked about, and it's actually super key in general to like your plotting or your making returns on your investment in Chia, is so there's one component which we talked about, your plotting capability, right? Your ability to generate plots. And then the second part, which I didn't touch on that much, and I realized I should have, it's super important, is your ability to store those plots, right? If you had a finite amount of money, you're gonna have to figure out a balance between those two. And that's what I wanna talk about right now. Really quickly though, if you haven't been here, my name's Austin. This channel is the Chia Collective. It's dedicated to all things Chia. So if this is stuff that you find super interesting, do me a huge favor, click that subscribe button, leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down if you don't like it. But any feedback that I get is super, super appreciated. So let's get right into it. So plotting speed and your ability to store plots, right? These are the two kind of key factors that go into, if you were to actually jump into Chia and say like, I want to start investing in this, and I want to become a farmer, like these are the two things that you really should consider, okay? Right? Because if you have a finite amount of dollars, and let's say you just have $2,000, you can't spend all $2,000 making an awesome plotting PC build that is gonna do super well, because then you have no money to store any of those plots. And so you gotta figure out what the right balance is right there. And of course you should look at your potential return from that. So anyone that has a question toward like profitability, I really like using the Chia calculator. That's something, it's a really useful tool to give you a rough idea of how things might look if you start to plot and what your potential payouts are. And so we can jump into that right now. Let's just really quickly go through this. It's a website, it's really easy. If you haven't used this before, I highly recommend visiting it, because it's a good way to really help you understand what you're going to be doing and what your future profitability will look like. So this is the site, very straightforward. There's a bunch of levers and stuff. Really quickly though, we're going to always go into advanced. That really matters a lot. And it's going to go ahead and plot a few cool things for you. We'll talk about that more in a second. But let's just assume, okay, that you are brand new to this. You're going to start from zero, right? You have no space, and then you're going to start inputting plotting. So this is a part that's really interesting, right? Because you could spend, let's say, if you spent $2,000 right now to build a plotting PC that does, let's just say like, I don't know, let's say 10 gigs or 10 plots per day, which is like about 1 terabyte. If you then are capping your space at, let's just say 4 terabytes, right? Because you invest all your money into plotting, but you didn't invest any money into actually being able to hold those plots, and you only have 4 terabytes, which is actually like basically after 4 days of plotting, you will fill up your hard drive space, right? After 6 months, you're gonna make, before we actually talk about, with these default settings, you're gonna make $431 after 6 months. Not very good investment for $2,000, right? And then that also doesn't factor in, I think, the part of like net space. And so net space is basically how fast this Chia network is growing. And right now we're seeing some pretty crazy growth. I think it's, I have to go back and check, but it's growing real fast. It's like growing like 5% or something daily. Because yesterday we were at like 2.2 exabytes, and now we're like 2.6. That's like 10%, I think. So we'll just say like 7% right now. And this is gonna keep growing really fast, rapidly for a while. And I think, I don't know what we're gonna hit, but let's just say it grows really fast for, let's say 30 days. You know what, screw it. Let's just say 30 days, right? If you're plotting at 1 terabyte a day, and then you end up with 4 terabytes, you're making like no money, right? Look at that, $107. But let's tinker around with it. Let's say we make some trade-offs where you invest, you know, you cut your plotting speed in half, so you're doing 5 plots a day, give or take, but you can hold like 22 terabytes now. Actually, let's say 20, because I think 16 terabyte hard drives right now are going at about $500, which is pretty expensive. Hopefully the prices will go down, but those $500 can go toward an extra 20 terabytes, right? So now you're making $217. Still not a very good investment, really, after 6 months. So yeah, it's definitely a very interesting situation right now with Chia. I think a lot of people are asking like, oh, is it too late to invest? And it really comes down to like how much you can plot. I think if you build a pretty good system, you can actually do more than this. You can probably do more like 15. I think, give or take 15 plots a day is a pretty decent amount if you have a pretty quick computer. And so like now, okay, so after 6 months, you have $406. And that's because, you know, you're capping your hard drive space, right? What happens if we double this? 577. What happens if we go to like 120? Okay, so now we have 120 terabytes, which is a decent amount of hard drive space. That nets us $720. Now, the one thing is, once again, that's not very much money, but obviously after 6 months, this is a little bit better of an ROI than, you know, the $100 that we originally started. Let's look at a slightly longer time frame. Let's say 3 years, $800. Not great, really not great. But what's interesting is, I want to just bring this up to a little bit larger scale, just so that you guys have a like this is illustrated pretty clearly. Let's say you were plotting at like, you had a pretty beastly plotter and you were doing like 50 terabytes a day. Okay. And so then what's interesting, right, is really over the long run, and when we look at a long time horizon, I want you guys to remember this. It's hard drive, like having storage is really king, okay? So, right, after 3 years, if I change this to, let's say now we really go ham into a plotting system and we get one that's plotting 250 terabytes a day. Look at that. That changed nothing. That changed absolutely nothing to go from 50 to 250, right? Over a long time horizon, space is king, right? So if we go from 50 and then we go to 180, boom, $2,000 more, right, of revenue over 3 years. Assuming, you know, growth rates are the way they are, and there's a huge variable in growth rates. This is something that don't take this for granted. We honestly, I don't think anyone has any idea how fast this network's going to grow. You know, some people are saying like, well, the whole hard drive industry in 2020 was like, I forget, it was like something like 300 exabytes. Maybe it was zettabytes. I don't remember. But people were saying like, oh, well, if the growth continues at the rate that it is now, we're going to exceed the supply of hard drives for 1 year. And it's like, maybe we will, maybe we won't, who knows? That part, like, it's a variable, it's unknown. We can just assume that it's going to grow, right? That's like really the only assumption you can make. You can play with the numbers and it'll help you here and there. There's some other videos out there that cover a little bit more with a little bit more precision about like network growth. But what I wanted to just talk about more is like your money and how, if you're going to invest it, like where are you going to get the most return, right? Because you could go and you could get like a 20 terabyte system, right? And then let's just say you have 100 terabytes of space, right? To get like a 40 terabyte system, so we're thinking like you're plotting 40 plots per day, so you have like a 20 core processor, which means that you probably have to get like a Threadripper at that point, I think, and you're gonna have to upgrade that, and you know, you're gonna have enough RAM, and then you're gonna have enough SSDs, right? Like to go from like, I think like 20 to 40, you're gonna put in a decent amount of money, and we can say that might be like another $3,000, $3,500 just to do that. And that's like 7 more hard drives that you could put, right? And if you could invest in 7 more hard drives, so 7 more hard drives at $500, $3,500, 7 hard drives can get you, oh man, I'm really bad doing math in my head right now, but 7 times 16 is, I really can't do math, so I'm gonna bring a calculator up. Do this really quick. 7 times 16 is 112, right? So let's just look at this, right? So if we had $3,500 extra to dump into this, right? We can either dump it into hard drive space, right? So this would be an extra 112 terabytes. So we have 212, right? So 100 versus 212. Pretty good, right? We're almost doubling our output, but not really. Versus this, where we're doubling our plotting speed, but we're going nowhere. Look at that, right? We put that 3,500 toward storage space, and our yield after 3 years is way better. Now, once again, like, despite that, it's not looking very pretty with our network assumption rates. It's you know, you're putting $3,500 to make an extra, what is that? I can't do math. Like 2K, right? Over 3 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of money just to and you're not making it, right? You would be banking on like Chia going up in price or something else. And I don't know if that, yeah, you know, if that was me, I probably wouldn't be doing that. But I'm not here to like discourage you from, you know, deciding to invest in Chia. I'm just trying to help you have a better insight into like, if you're going to do it, you need to take this into consideration. Okay. You know, you want to figure out what is a good plotting speed and what, like, how much money you can, you know, you want to maximize as much money as you can toward actual storage space and just plot up to something that's optimal. So here's what I recommend doing. Okay. Figure out your budget. And then from there, you got to really start thinking about like how much of it you want to spend toward system upgrades and how much of it you want to spend toward hard drive space. My advice is the more that you can allocate toward hard drive space without totally sacrificing your plotting ability, the better off you probably will be. If you're in this and you're in this with a longer time horizon, if you're here just to make a quick buck, I think that ship's already sailed. I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you can invest an insane amount of capital and kind of catch up. But otherwise, it's a little too late for that. But if you believe in the project like I do, and you think Chia is going to be around, it might not be the Bitcoin killer that people are saying. It might be not like the biggest blockchain, but I think there's a lot of potential here. If you think you're gonna be able to invest and think about that from the long-term perspective, then more hard drive space is better, especially once pooling comes out and like your ability to generate blocks or win a little bit will kind of level out over time, and that'll help out a lot. So that's it. Just really quick video on that because I realize that that's something that's really important. It's, once again, plotting potential versus your ability to create plots versus like how many plots you can store. Always keep that in mind when you're building a system. If you have any questions about that, feel free to just ask it in the comments. I'm trying my best to answer whatever I can. And if you found this really, really helpful, once again, please help me out. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. You know, it's great to hear from you guys, and it's really great to like see what the Chia community is up to and what people are interested in. All right, have a good day, evening, wherever you are. See you in the next video.